Tony Robinson, you've been with Time Team, I believe, ever since it started, is that right?
That's right.
How long's that?
That's 14 years. It's extraordinary, isn't it? You'd never think it was that long.
You're looking well on it.
Yeah, well, I was 6 when I started.
You started in Blackadder, and this is one heck of a jump from that to archaeology.
I didn't start in Blackadder. I was in my late 30s by the time that I did Blackadder. Already by that time I'd been in show business for about a quarter of a century. So I'd had a whole variety of experiences, and I had quite an active life outside of the business, including, I've always been very engaged with history and to a lesser extent with archaeology. Archaeology for me has always been a rather vivid way to bring history to life, and when I was approached to front this pilot program for a new series, it seemed to me a really nice thing to do. I didn't do it for my career. I never thought it would pay the bills for 14 years. I did it for the crack, and because I knew some of the people who were involved, and you just get sucked into it.
So you really enjoy what you do here, eh?
Oh yes, it's completely addictive. Yeah.
You've got quite a varied line of jobs on the go at the minute. Voicing the Terry Pratchett books, is that your sort of thing that you'd read?
Yeah, it was my daughter who originally introduced me to Terry Pratchett, and I just found his books so beautifully written and so ironic that I really enjoyed them. And when he actually approached me out of the blue, he was a reporter for the Bristol Evening Post even after he first started writing, and I was living down in Bristol, and I was working for the local radio station making a spoof history series which amused Terry, and so he through my agent, he approached me and said, would I read the audio tape of his first book, Colour of Magic, and I did, and I've now completed something like my 42nd Terry Pratchett book onto audio tape, it's one of the things I'm proudest of, I think.
You've written books as well. You've co-written Archaeology is Rubbish, a Beginner's Guide. How does that fit in with what you're doing now?
I wasn't sure that I'd actually learnt anything at all about archaeology until Macmillan's asked me to write the book, which I did with Mick Aston, and I suddenly realised that I knew a vast amount, as anybody would after they've been doing any subject for about 14 years. And those things that I didn't know, I knew how to ask the questions. So I would sit down with Mick in his kitchen in Churchill in Somerset and say, what does this mean? Why this? Why do you do that? Why do you do it that way? And it was one of the most enjoyable writing processes I've ever known. And now, a lot of students use the book, not just people who like watching the telly.
You're currently recording a new series called The Codex File. Mm-hmm. What's that about?
Well, the hardest thing about it is that we film it in the British Museum, but we film it all through the night. Now, there was a time when I was about 18 or 19 when I could just get away with one night without sleep. But now I've just had my 60th birthday. Actually, it's tough. It's very tough. But the reason is, it's a bit like Crystal Maze, except that all the clues are some of the very best artefacts and archaeological finds in the British Museum. So it's quite a fun way of bringing artefacts really to the forefront of people's imaginations. But of course you can't do that in the daytime because there's all the people going to the museum around, so we have to do it all through the night.
There's the odd dead body in there, isn't there?
There are very many dead bodies in there, and I can tell you that walking through the Egyptian room on your own looking for the loo at 3 o'clock in the morning is a fairly scary experience. But that series, I've only made 2 of them so far. Next Sunday I make another one, and I think there's going to be about 6 in the first run, and we'll put them out on Channel 4 shortly before Christmas. And if it all goes well, the British Museum have already agreed that they'd like to do another 6. I think the British Museum used to have the reputation of being a rather frowsty place, and they want to attract more people and younger people and people who wouldn't normally go to museums. And I think they see this programme as a way of attracting people.
Where do you call home, Tony?
The latest hotel. Where do I call home? I brought my kids up in Bristol. I still have a flat in Bristol. I spend most of my time working in London, and I've got a house in Spain that I retreat to and write in, and I've got a fantastic garden there. And when I'm there, I'm away from the phone, away from the camera, and I think I have some of my best times there.
Have you got time for hobbies?
All the things that I do are my hobbies, really. If essentially I'm an actor and writer. What would my hobby be? Going on archaeological digs, I suppose. It's ridiculous, isn't it? It's a great life, though, isn't it? You know, you earn money with your hobbies.
If you were asked, would you do Blackadder again?
Oh, yes, of course I would. And I think Rowan would as well. The problem really about doing Blackadder is just pulling together all the people. Hugh Laurie is rapidly becoming the second most famous person in the whole of the United States. Richard's always writing his big movies. Ben's writing his books. Stephen Fry is doing everything. I'm conquering the world. It's hard to pull us all together.